You ready to film another exciting episode of Real Good at Doing Stuff?
I can't wait.
Gotta be more exciting.
I can't wait.
Okay, good. There we go.
All right, we're back. It's time for a new and super exciting episode of Real Good at Doing Stuff. Before we get started, like, comment, subscribe, tell me what an idiot I am in the comments below. If you don't subscribe, you're going to miss out on some of the excitement. And nobody wants to miss out on exciting stuff, do you? God, it'd be crazy. Anyhow. All right, so today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about some radial tuning. This time at Donald's Race, SGMP, lights out 12, I think. I can never keep track of what's lights out, what's no mercy. I don't know. It's the fall race, radial stuff, and what we're going to be talking about today is limited drag radial, in particular the Orange Nova of Justin Martin's 1972 Nova. Guest star will be Justin Martin, Cody Ashley, a few others we'll talk about. In particular today, we're going to talk about the Magic 8, which is something new that Donald's doing. And what it is kind of a race within a race. I think the way it works out is that E1 of the Magic 8 is actually LDR Q4. And then there's 2 more rounds that night. So they take the top 8 cars at that point and just throw them in a race real quick. They run 3 rounds and determine a winner, and everybody exchanges free high fives, and that's the end of it. I guess you make zillions of dollars if you win. But anyhow, so we're going to talk about that race a little bit today, and then I got to travel a little bit, but I'll be back, and we'll try to talk about some more LDR stuff in the next episode, if this all works out right. And it's going to be super exciting. So anyhow, E1 of this, we have to race the black nitrous big block. This is the biggest block that's ever been made, I think, over in the other lane. It's just huge. And these guys so far, I think they're at this point they're qualified number 1. They went a 96. However, in qualifying, I think they wheel stood pretty good, went flying, and kind of crashed the car up pretty good. Put it in the wall, did some damage. I don't know exactly what, but fairly substantial. And they thrashed and got it back together, to their credit. It's sitting beside of us, ready to go into this. However, we got to determine our race strategy for what we're going to do here. This is also a qualifying round, so we need to try to, come up with a plan, whether we're going to try to improve our position there, try to win the race, whatever. I'm kind of making the gamble that those guys took a pretty hard lick, and the chances that they go A to B and get it done first time after that big of a problem are pretty slim. They might pull it off, but I kind of doubt it. So I'm gambling on that, and I basically just put in a quick but conservative A to B pass that I think is going to go down and get the job done. So let's take a look at that real quick and see how that turns out. And let's do some big burnout first. Here we go. Okay, so that worked out that time. Who knows if it would have worked out again, but the gamble paid off. Those nitrous cars squirted out of the hole really hard, and in this case, he climbed the ring gear, and that was that. So, like I said, that drag racing is all about, taking chances and examining the odds. And in this case, it worked out. Anyhow, so let's look at the data and see what we got here. All right, so we're radio racing again. So we got ETs to look at. Imagine that. All right, so it went 111, 275, 407. Let's see. Look at the profiler. See if I got. I don't even have the mile an hour wrote down. I don't know what it was. Probably 187 or 88. I imagine something like that. And everything is looking pretty normal. Really. Move this out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. Oil pressure. Super damn duper. God, look at that. In this case, we're leaving. It's a big block. We don't need a ton of boost on the starting line. That pass we left at about 8.3 pounds. And you can see I'm pulling quite a bit of timing to achieve that and maintain that regulated as steady as possible. We're down to about 10 degrees of timing. That's all you need a lot of times for a big block like this. Sometimes you may need more, but some other motors will pull considerably more than that. But with this thing here, it seems to be super happy, like right there. So generally leave that alone. And our boost is not really getting in until high gear, but it's mostly in. I think I've got it targeted to be in at about 2 seconds or so. This car has got boxes everywhere. We got Holly doing this. We got a profiler. We got AMS running the boost controller, or running the boost, curve, and we have race pack. Some of the data's in that too, so it's a little difficult to get all this stuff together for a educational video purpose. But anyhow, you can get the gist of it. Hopefully, we're making this thing is a intercooled gasoline on Q16. And some of you may say, well, that's crazy. Why don't you run alcohol? Well, yeah, you're right. But in this class, as the way the rules are, it's a little more complicated. This car weighs, I think we have to weigh 3325. We cross the scales at 3350, which is, insanely heavy. So there's less advantage of alcohol because, one, we're limited turbos. We got 2088s. We can't make 87 pounds of boost or whatever. So the gasoline stays in the picture a little longer. And the other thing is we have to carry so much weight anyhow. There's less downside to having an intercooler with a truckload of ice. Speaking of which, if you want to buy a truckload of ice, you can, in Adel, Georgia, you can buy a truckload of ice. Anyhow, fun fact. Okay, so everything looks pretty normal on this pass. It's really just kind of a mild, safe hit. Nothing crazy. We've made some fairly substantial changes to this motor, trying to keep everything a little happier, mechanically speaking, we're talking about. And that's requiring some retuning, the fuel map and whatnot, and that has been, at first was kind of all over the place, and we're trying to tighten that up. Let's look at that. I've already got it pretty good. So it's 0 there, -3, 1. It's actually pretty close. At first it was probably 10 to 12%, but we've got it where it's not really correcting much at all. Now, if you'll notice, my target air-fuel ratio is 11:3. Crazy fat. Yeah, okay, probably so. We got a lot of spark in this car, and I'm trying to keep things alive. So we're starting there and working back from there. Anybody tells you that you're going to blow your motor up from having a little fat and gasoline car like this, they simply don't know what they're talking about. That's how I start tuning everything. Always have. Period. So let's look at our changes, profiler real quick. Here's our drive shaft path, the red. See, I had the profile. This is a representation of the profile that was in the car on that pass, the blue line. And you can see out here it's considerably above the drive shaft path. So we're really nowhere near it. Down here we're pretty close. And this next pass we've got to run a car that's, I think, is probably going to get down and probably going to go pretty quick. So we need to pick up the pace a little bit to move on. And that means that we're going to give it some down here, and not really out here a whole lot yet. But we are going to push here some, maybe a little bit out here, but not a lot. But we're definitely got to get with it here to get the 60 down and the 330 reeled in a little bit. So this is the profile that I changed to. You can see the difference is right here. I just lift the 60 a little bit. And the reason is so we got room to grow. Let's blow that up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. All right. See, I've just raised the profile above. The blue one's the old one, the one we just ran, and I've just lifted this above. So we got room to push into, right? And that's the only change we're making for E2 and the Magic 8 on the profiler. Now, on the Holly, let's look at some changes. What am I doing? I'm being an idiot. Okay, comparison file. Yeah. Already got one open. The fuel base table, slight change out here. What is black? That's scary. Whatever. So out here, I think I'm just trimming a little bit of fuel out to try to trim the correction even better out the back. Number or two. That's it. That's the only change made there. On this car, I don't do this a lot, but on this car there is a launch retard that's used. And sometimes that retard goes the whole way. It would just pull a degree or two out the whole distance of the track to manage power or control timing out the back. But there's a launch retard that you can see here. We're going to change that. We were pulling 3, 2.5, 1.5, 1, and then 0. So, but that 1 goes the whole way pretty much, the way the thing was scaled here. I changed this later because the scaling was kind of weird. So I changed this to 2, 1.5, 1, 0. And that adds a degree out the back in theory. We're going to add a degree from basically 1.5 on or so. But we're going to pull a degree less through the 60, right? So that's the changes in the Holly. Let's see here. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Now, also in the AMS, I think we give it like a pound or so on the starting line, and maybe trickle or so, a pound or so in through the 60, and that's pretty much it, right? And your biggest change there is going to be that pound on the brake, right? If you're leaving at 9 versus 8, that kind of carries through the 60 a little bit because it's significantly more wind going through the motor, more fuel being burned, and it's gonna have effects that carry through the 60, even if you don't hardly change the rest of the numbers. It's going to carry through a little bit. But we keep them maintained. We pump them up in a pound through the whole thing. But like I said, the biggest effect is that launch boost level right there. So anyhow, those are the changes we're making going into E2. The track should be getting a little tighter because the sun's going down and air may be a little better. We got to figure all this in. Radio racing is super racetrack sensitive, and you got to watch that stuff like a hawk. So we factor all that in, and let's put it in there and go see what happens. Okay, so we got through that round. We're going to the finals, albeit a little bit different way. That pass, we went 400, so we've picked up significantly like we wanted to. The left lane went 399, I believe. Now, they lost on a hole shot. The left lane's reaction time was just off, and it just happens, you know. So we went on a hole shot that time. Moving on to the finals. Let's look at the data real quick. All right, the solid line is the pass we just made, and you see the boost is up here just like we wanted, a pound or so, and through here. Now, one thing that is different that I didn't tell you quite correctly the first time, we turned up the back, I believe, on this thing about 10 pounds from 80 to 90 on the gate. And we knew that this thing, we've been running it down a little bit, and we just turned it up to where we normally run it at. And they gave us another pound or two out the back and the corresponding mile an hour. Is the timing. The timing is in a little more now. And all that adds up to a quicker ET, obviously. All right. In the profiler, let's look here. This is our drive shaft path, the red. The blue is where the profile was. As you can see, we don't get on it. We nip it in the shift right here. Pulls a little bit of timing. I usually run that way. Most times that's kind of how I do things in that department. And sometimes I'll have a spot here in the profile that's just arranged just for or zoned just for that. Right, it just depends on the type of racing. Sometimes it's hard to do. In no prep, it's about impossible to do that because you never know where you're going to be on track position. You know, the profile's still off of it, but we got to pick up the pace again. So we need to come up with a profile that's going to give us some more. So for the finals in Magic 8, this is what we do. Let me turn this drive shaft off. If you look here, I just pick it up right here a little bit just to give some room to grow in the front half. We're not really going to. Got plenty of room to grow out here already, so we don't need to move that. Matter of fact, if we had more of this figured out, we'd be running a tighter profile. But we're trying to learn here with this setup. Let me zoom in. All right, you can see how the old profile is the blue line right here. The new one is the dots. That's where we're just moving it a little bit just to give it a little bit of room to push up against it with more power application in theory. All right, now I think if I remember right, I left the starting line the same as far as boost and the AMS, but we did make a change or two elsewhere. I might have crept it in a little bit quicker in the AMS, but I don't think I changed the pressure here that much. Let's look at a comparison file. Let's see where we're going. I've got these backwards. All right. The differences, fuel, base table. Once again, just a little bit of trimming. I don't know why this thing shows these black numbers. I think it has something to do with this screen. But I think I just trimmed a number or two just to tighten things up. Doesn't have anything to do with power production. Yeah. Okay, I changed the launch RPM from 4,050 to 4,100. This does two things. One, it kind of heats the tune up a little bit. The same amount of boost at 4,100 is more air than at 4,050 if you look at your fuel flow numbers, right? If you have 10 pounds of boost at 3,500, that's less air than if you have 10 pounds of boost at 4,500 for obvious reasons. So we're picking things up a little bit. The other thing we're doing there is you got to remember that when you do that, you're tightening that converter up, and generally speaking, your reaction time is going to get quicker. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing this. It's also can be harder on the tire for obvious reasons. All right, I go back in here. I pull more out. Now we're just 1 degree out in these first two steps, and we're all in. So you can see the difference down here. We're just adding timing through the 60 that we had pulled out. And I put a degree in out back to give it more. All right, so those are the changes. We got a quick car, Gargus, Paul Gargus in the white twin turbo big block. So a similar combination in the other lane, and they're going to be quick. So we got to kind of get with it. Hopefully not throw a runaway. Once again, we got to look at the big picture. We're here for the LDR race, and we don't want to. You want to go down every time so you can keep learning and keep chipping away at your ET. So it's kind of a twofold thing. Yeah, it's nice to win the race, but it's also you want to get down every time so you can learn something and make the car faster in the long term. So anyhow, let's take that to the starting line and see what happens. All right, so what you saw there was us losing the race. You're probably thinking, well, I guess you guys aren't really as good at doing stuff as you thought. Well, I don't know. If you'll look right here, see that's a red light. And that happened because Justin left a little bit early, which you might say that's not good at doing stuff, but I think it's a little bit too good at doing stuff. He was so good at doing stuff that he left before you're supposed to leave. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to criticize, but anyhow, we're not going to get any of the money from that. I think it's a problem with the rules, but whatever. So let's look at some data real quick. See how the tune did and everything. We went. What we run? Let's look at. We went 398, 106, 268, 398 compared to 108, 270, 400. So we picked up two numbers down low and through the 330, which is what we're trying to do. We didn't really change the back. So if you look at our drive shaft path, it starts to grow over the previous one right through here, and then once it's in through here, it stays pretty much the same out the back. And if you look at the Holley data, we got a boost increase here, which is where we put where I think I brought it in a little a couple tenths sooner the peak, and it shows up there. It's ahead all through here just a little bit, maybe a couple pounds or a couple tenths of a pound here, but through the 60 it's ahead just a tick. But we stack it in here a little bit and we get some drive shaft RPM out of that. And that's it for today. That concludes the Magic 8 episode, and I gotta go do some tuning and whatnot, but we'll be back in a couple days and we'll talk about the rest of the LDR race or what I'm doing tuning-wise next, but we'll see. But anyhow, like and subscribe. I don't think there's anything quite like this on YouTube as far as drag racing, tuning, or engine building or whatever. It's a little bit different, I think, and I think you should subscribe to it or comment below. Tell me how stupid I am. Either way, it'd be good. And also comment, tell me what you want to see about, what you want to learn about, or what you're interested in. And I'm going to try to answer some of those questions a little better, and maybe we'll come up with some new stuff to talk about. But just let me know.